Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to the Exceptional Conservative Show live from the nation's capital. I'm yours truly, the Exceptional One, Ken McClinton. So glad that you could be with us tonight. We are talking with none other than Lynne Taylor. You know her better as CommonCoreDiva Lynne Taylor. Just the most wonderful young woman in the world who cares so much about your children and their education. We've spoken on many topics in the education field, whether we were talking about the crap that was going on with colleges and the quote unquote expenditures to get kids into schools. We were talking about autism. We've been talking about a lot of subjects when it comes to education. But there is a subject matter that is near and dear to both of us because we're moving up on election 2020. And a lot of people are focused on the over, I think it's like 50,000 people who are beginning to, as Democrats plan their election campaigns, Democrat hopefuls that began with Biden and Clinton and Holder and Kerry and end with Gata and Scrate and all these other names that some of us cannot even spell. And there is the hopeful desire there would be an answer for the problems of education in America. We learned in the last segment there that that may be hopeless. Lynne Taylor, please tell us that it's a Democrat thing. It's just the 2020 Democrat presidential hopefuls and their egalitarian Karl Marxisms. It's them that's the problem, right?
You wish. No, this is what has been. This was one of the reasons why I wanted to do the particular series that I'm doing right now, Ken. It's called the Prudence Files, and the reason why I chose the particular name Prudence is because it's the root of wisdom, wise decision making. And if ever there was a time we, the people, needed to be making wise decisions about who is going to be our next president, it would be now. And so I thought, well, okay, it's a huge field, but I'm going to dive in and I'm going to make a series. It was covering how the series would work and the current senators who are running. Today was the current representatives and former federal leaders. Tomorrow will be a review of President Trump and Vice President Pence. The fourth series will cover all those state level officials, former and current, who are putting their name in the hat. And then the fifth series, we'll look at the private citizens who are running, and we'll just try and wrap everything up. But what I have seen in all my research, Ken, is that I stopped looking what initial was behind their name because it was very evident that no matter what party they represent, be it Republican or Democrat, the agendas are almost carbon copy the same. And it is, from someone like me who's been doing this for so many years, trying to raise awareness of this, first of all, is unconstitutional. Second of all, it's illegal. Third of all, it's ruining our children. And yet we have a president who made campaign promises on his last, he made campaign promises during his last bid, which was, he got elected. We're still waiting for some of those promises he made to come true on education. Now, what I have noticed is that, like I said, it's not mattering. Most of the candidates want universal preschool, which we heard Patty Murray run up the flagpole with the Every Student Succeeds Act. Lamar Alexander was right behind her, and he's a Republican, she's a Democrat, so they were united on that. Yeah. They either want that or they want to ram the climate change from the United Nations down our children's throats, because we have to all be green, and we all have to have the tools of the United Nations in our education. They also want to ram.
Let me just interject real quick here, Lynne,
Sure.
Because those two really make a big difference in terms of electoral politics, because we're hearing recently from Senate Majority Leader, Mitch McConnell, that climate change does exist and it's real, and they put up a full vote of its importance, in which all of the Republicans voted for it. voted against it, forgive me, and the Democrats voted present. But why is climate change being taught to kids as low as the pre-K level? Is that for indoctrination purposes, or is that science real?
Right. It is the nation's sustainable development goals. And because of that, you have to have change agents in education. And one of the biggest ones is called science, technology, engineering, and math, otherwise known as STEM. Now, STEM brings in all 17 of the Sustainable Development Goals, which climate change is one of those. Now, what we need to understand, though, Ken, is that the current research on climate change is not fully scientifically based. It is
Mm.
quasi-scientifically based. And what we've seen from Congress, this, but they should, and when I get through with this series, I'll probably delve into those, is I've seen federal legislation that is the use of federal funds to create proof scientific study that would challenge these quasi-science beliefs.
Thank you. Also, want to run up the poll real quick. Universal daycare. You and I are very mean spirit conservatives because we don't want poor black Hispanic women to go to work. We want them to stay home and raise their kids because that's what's going to happen if we don't give universal daycare to everybody and universal preschool and universal kindergarten. If you don't do that, then those women won't be able to work and they won't be able to take care of their families, and thus they'll be on welfare, and then you'll be talking about them being on welfare. They can't get off. See, it's conservatives like you and me who are against that kind of thing. Can we get some truth out of all of that?
Sure, what it's created is the nanny state, where you, the parent, birth the child, and that's the end of your responsibility. The government will take over its education, its care, its literal feeding, it's where it's going to work, where it's going to live. And that's just absolutely unnatural. That is not the job of the government. That is our God-given right as a parent. And we have several of these candidates, again, regardless of whether there's an R, a D, or an I behind their name, they're pushing for universal preschool, which also can double as this early education and early services, which automatically brings in your universal daycare.
Mm-hmm. Now, what I want to ask you here, the cost of universal daycare, and then we'll move on to because you and I know reality. Uh, Free ain't free.
No, no.
And there's also a kind of sort of universal daycare already on the books that hasn't worked well for children through the educational system. It's an early start program for kids, and it's
Early
shown.
Head Start, yeah. Uh-huh.
Yeah, and thank you because apparently that program was supposed to make black kids smarter and Hispanic kids smarter. Uh, has the government been successful with early Head Start?
No, absolutely not. We still have children who are coming to school where they're supposed to help guide you through that. They're supposed to walk. They were supposed to walk along the parent because I know my parents, and I knew every one of my friends' parents, be they black, white, or purple. Their the education system totally supplants the parents.
There you go. Now, very quickly here because we're about to. A lot of people we are completely blind and we don't care about campaign promises. And let's just be honest, he did a great job regarding the economy. He also, under the current Secretary of Education, took another look at abuse of the innocent on campus, men that are not true. And as well, recently signed an executive order saying that free speech exists on all college campuses where there's public funding. Tell us where he's falling short.
Okay, now I'm going to ask you to repeat your question because some of it was very garbled.
Okay, I do apologize. Tell me where
That's
Donald
okay.
Trump's falling short in education.
Uh, everywhere. No, I'm not trying to be funny. I'm
Exactly.
serious, and it's terrible. It's absolutely terrible. Okay. If you go on his website right now, everything that we, the citizens, have seen as harming our children, such as the massive amount of data collection or the high stakes assessment or those sorts of things, his education column is very vague. Like he'll tell you, okay, this was a promise that was kept. We removed 600 useless education regulations, but not one of them is mentioned. No example is given, so you have no clue which of these regulations were truly, useless or not. Now, first of all, the entire Department of Education is 155% illegal. He was supposed to work with us to get rid of it or start shutting it down. Hasn't happened yet. He had promised one of my dear friends from New Hampshire. She absolutely stood up during his last campaign and asked him face to face, are you going to stop the data mining? He promised her and the rest of the nation it would stop. And here we are with a president who signed in based policymaking. And what that law did, Ken, was make the Patriot Act look like a nursery rhyme because it opens up the door for not just student data mining, but every United States American citizen. It causes backdoors to losing our constitutional rights. And that's supposed to be a campaign promise that was kept. No, those should never have been passed into law. Repealing ESSA was something we begged him to do. He's done nothing but continue to lift Betsy DeVos up. Which reminds me, she was not on the campaign. She was not on the ballot, was she?
She wasn't on the ballot. Not at
She
all.
was not on the ballot. But every one of her victories is on his promises kept list. I kid you not.
Wow. Wow. Ladies and gentlemen, we have Lynne Taylor with us tonight. You better know her as Common Core Diva. It seems as if elections don't make a difference. And this is what Donald Trump will say. Listen, I'm the executive. I'm huge. I'm huge. I've done a great job with what I got. And with the hand dealt to me, I did a great job. We got a great economy. We're making changes when it comes to education. But you guys aren't sending anybody to Congress that's going to work with me. What do you say to that?
That, I'm sorry, sounds extremely one sided because I know that we, the people, the moms and the dads, and the ones who've been very vocal in trying to get to him this information about, look, do you see what you're doing? Do you see what you're leading? You're leading us more and more down the path to education ruin, not education success. And we have been thwarted at every single turn. Those of us who voted for Congress members, we voted for those we knew would represent us. And every time we are beaten by the corporate lobbyists. And what I have found is through some of the funding for all these many, many candidates that we're seeing pop up and say, hey, I want to be the president in 2020,
Mm-hmm.
is I've not seen one candidate yet, Ken, that did not have some sort of what I call Common Core machine funding. Okay. And what I mean by that is we've got, and it's all in my series, I've got it broken down by corporation name, as well as their education agenda stances. But you've got Microsoft, you've got Facebook, you've got Dell, you've got all these big data, big unions, big labor, big pharma, big insurance, and they're the ones who are drowning out our voices. Because if we, the people, and we have spoken, we hated Common Core, we didn't want it. This president said he'd help us get rid of it. No,
Mm-hmm.
he helped codify it when he signed in another executive order that bumped up the career tech education. Now, a lot of people want to give me grief over that one, but let me tell you, Ken, that's adult Common Core that is being shoved on our kids earlier and earlier, and it's glorified workforce prep training. It is not academics. It has killed our academics. That's why Johnny and Susie can't read. They can't add. They can't think because they're not being told to. They're being told how to push a button or turn a wheel. And
Exactly.
career tech education is aligned to the Common Core standards. But we have Congress people who are preaching, and Virginia Fox from here in North Carolina is the chief one who will tell you that all education, Ken, all education is career tech education. That is
Wow.
not true. It's not supposed to be that. It never was supposed to be that.
Ladies and gentlemen, I love it when this woman is in our auspices. Lynne Taylor, Common Core Diva. You can find her at Twitter at Common Core Diva. We're going to ask that she stay around for just a few minutes because we did get to a late start. There is so much that we need to talk about regarding the educational system, but we're going to talk. We're going to try to get a sneak peek at the series that she's doing, and I'm so glad
Okay.
that she's with us in terms of doing that. But there is some truth to the fact that there are Washingtonians, and that's what I call congressmen. Once they get off the airplane, they become Washingtonians who have turned their back on what education is supposed to be. It's supposed to be local, it's supposed to be adapted for the needs of the child, and the money is supposed to follow accordingly. When we come back, we're going to talk about why this presidential election is so very important to dealing with all of those particular aspects. You got to send the right people to Washington.